Hey, I'm so glad to have you. I'm Katie Hornor, your host of the Flamingo Advantage podcast. And today, our guest is someone who believes, like I do, that you are here for a purpose. This is someone who is a best-selling author, a podcaster, a conference speaker, business coach. Brian is passionate about helping people grow the impact of their message and their income. He has authored the book, Start With Your People. He has a TED Talk, and we'll link to all of those in the show notes. But what we brought him in to talk about today is the upcoming conference that he's hosting called Hope Story Conference. So, Brian Dixon, we are so excited to have you on the show today.
Katie, thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Well, tell us about Hope Story. Like, how did this come about? All of us have that story behind us of how we got to where we are. And so we'd love to hear yours.
Yes, I believe that your hard story can become your hope story. There's this verse in the Bible, Psalm 118, that talks about the stone the builders threw away became the cornerstone. And I think in the same way, there's an experience that you've been through in your life, whether it's a breakup, whether it was a car accident, whether it was something shameful, whether it was something really hard that you struggled through, job loss, financial disaster, all sorts of things that we experience. And that hard story is something that's really, it's kind of our secret shame. It's the thing we're embarrassed about. But what I've come to understand is that God is the redeemer of all things. He makes all things new. And one thing that he makes new is your story. And here's the really cool thing. He uses us as his hands and feet, right? And so being the hands and feet of Jesus, he takes our hard story and can make it our hope story. And that lesson that we learned isn't wasted. That hard experience isn't wasted when it's shared with somebody else, because what you've been through needs to be shared so somebody else can see the hope that you have and realize that if you've been through it and you're still here, then they could get through it too. And that's what the Hope Story Conference is all about. I'm actually working on a book called Your Hope Story, which is just all about that process of discovering your hard story and then converting it, turning it into a hope story.
I love that. I love that. I've always said God wastes nothing. Everything in our life is for a purpose, right? For our good, for his glory, for a way to encourage someone else. And sometimes we may not know until 10 days or 10 years or 25 years later what that was all about.
Right.
But I believe that God redeems everything that he walks us through. And I love how you're helping folks get their story to the world. So the conference is coming up January 2024.
Fun.
Dates are 17 to 19, and it's happening in Sarasota, Florida. But tell us who this is for. Who needs to be in town? Who needs to be sure they don't miss this event?
If you feel like you have this message inside of you, and maybe you've been trying to share it through a podcast or from stage or even in your journal or social media, I would say if you're a speaker, if you're a podcaster, if you're a writer, or if you've been dreaming about one of those three things, because we have 3 tracks, a speaker track, a writer track, a podcaster track, then the Hope Story Conference is for you. But it's especially for you if you know there's something more for you in your life. Like you know that you've got to get this book out. You've got to get this message out. You want to make an impact. You want to leave a legacy. That's the overall theme of the Hope Story Conference, is that you have this message. This year's theme specifically is about discovering and uncovering that message. So if you're kind of not sure about exactly what my message is, and you have some confusion right now, come get some clarity by coming to the Hope Story Conference.
I love that. And I am so excited that I get to go. My husband and I will be attending this year and be helping a little bit. I'm super, super excited because I've heard some of the stories that have come out of this event. And I want you to share a couple of those with us if you can. Somebody that came to the event and that you guys have been helping to get their message out. Share some of that with us.
Oh my goodness. Well, there's so many, but I love to talk about Rachel. Rachel Shirley is somebody who loves animals. She loves pets, dogs and cats, right? So I don't know about y'all listening, but I've got this little puppy behind me, and he's not so little anymore. But I was never really a dog person until we got a dog, and I'm like, oh my goodness, I love this little fuzzy little muffin. I just love him. And Rachel's had pets all her life, and as happens, pets pass away. Their lifespan is not that long, and she really looked for resources in the faith community and church about, like, what do I do with my feelings about losing my animal, and how do I walk families through that? So she started a coaching group where she's helping people through the process of pet loss. And her story really is one of transformation, realizing that there is peace and purpose through pet loss, that God loves us so much that he made little furry animals for us to hang out with, right? That's part of creation, is engaging with animals, as Adam did all the way back. But Rachel's story is about helping families who are going through pet loss. So they have to put their dog down, or their cat got run over, or they lost their bird. Like, these are real things that might sound kind of silly because it's not your pet, but when it's your pet, it's a different story. And so her hope story is you can discover peace and purpose through the process of pet loss. And she's actually working on a book on that right now, which is really cool. But, attended the conference, discovered that, wait a second, I thought my message was about like hope and Christian living. And she's like, but I keep coming back to pets. And so that's the thing. Like, I believe that each of us have kind of a weird story. Like, I think our hard story is sometimes a little bit weird. Like, we're like, nobody would care about that. And Rachel had that. Like, yes, that's your flamingo.
Your flamingo advantage, your flamingo angle is that what you're calling weird is that unique thing that's only you. Yeah. Only you could do something like that.
It's only you. I mean, for me, I've always loved books. Like, it's so weird. And the funny thing is, I like literally didn't read my first book all the way through until I was after high school. But the process of like, there's a book on that? That's crazy. Like, I'd like to hang out at bookstores. I was so fascinated at the process of publishing a book, and how does somebody figure this out? And like, that became my story, is the whole process of trying to get a book deal and trying to get an agent and an editor. And like, it's so confusing and so overwhelming. And so I discovered, wait a second, if I can figure this out for me, maybe I can help other people. And that's really, I think, the core of your hope story, is realizing that the person that you're really meant to serve is probably you 3 years ago. It's probably a version of you who's still stuck, because you're not stuck anymore. You're living in the promised land right now. Like, you went through that financial, hardship, you went through that health challenge, but now you're thriving. But there are people who are still stuck in the mud. And this is our story of hope, is to look back and reach a hand out and say, wait a second, you can get through this because I've gotten through this. That's what the Hope Story Conference is all about, is helping you figure it out so that you can go share it out.
I love that. And I love how it also can be like this impetus for God to use it in the business arena. Like, I know so many people who started with this is my story. This is what I learned. This is how I overcame this difficulty. And they've been able to, create the book, but then turn that book into a coaching program, or some people are professional speakers using that story everywhere. And the book becomes like this way to open the door to the more that you can do for people. And for a lot of people, that is even to the point of helping them to start or to grow a business. And I know that's one of the things with our clients that we're always like, so you got a book yet? Right? Because it opens the door for so many more opportunities.
Yes, I love it. We were moving some boxes over the weekend. And as I was opening up the boxes, it was our boxes of books that we'd moved over to summer and haven't opened up all the boxes yet. And I found a book in the box that was written by my great grandfather-in-law. It was his like 7 sermons that he preached back in the 40s and 50s. And oh my goodness, like my wife like devoured the book. Like she's seen it before, but like she read it and was like, this is a legacy. It's our children's great grandpa. And to think about that, and this guy's a legend. He was like a tent revival evangelist speaker guy. And it's like, you know what? All the sermons he preached, all the people he touched, all the events that he had, those are all gone, right? They're all gone. The people that he impacted, most of them have passed away at this point. But you know what's living on? His book. His book is still living on. I mean, I even want to republish the book, because it's so impactful for today's generation. And that's the thing. I think that your hard story becomes your hope story, and your hope story eventually becomes your hope book. And getting that hope book out into the hands of people who are going through a hard time is the calling. I believe that's on most of our lives.
I love that so much. So looking forward to this event and discovering more about our hope stories and how God wants to use that. But there's so much more that goes into a conference. There's the in-between times with the fellowship with all these others who are of like faith, of like desires to make a difference in the world, right? People with more experience than you that you can learn from, people with less experience from you that you can pour into, because I don't think we're supposed to be the Dead Sea. We're supposed to be the Red Sea, right? It needs to flow in and it needs to flow out to have health in the kingdom. And it's just such an amazing experience. I love events, period, virtual or in
Yes, me
person.
too.
But there's something about being face to face in a community of like-minded people with like-minded goals that is just so amazing. And I'm really, really looking forward to this year. So if you're listening and wondering, what is this again? Hope Story Conference. So you want to go to hopestoryconference.com if you want to get all the details, and the dates again, January 17 to 19, 2024. If you're hearing this after the fact, go over to hopestoryconference.com and check out the dates for the next event.
Yes.
But we definitely want to invite you to check it out, to come, to share it with someone you know who could be impacted by this. We all know somebody that was like, well, I might want to write a book someday, or you should definitely write a book someday, right?
That somebody's in your mirror. I believe that each one of us eventually want to write a book, but what we often do is we want to wait until the perfect time. We want to wait till the kids are out of the house, or the kids are married, or the kids are graduated, or we always blame the kids for some reason. There's never a perfect time to start working on your dream. It's just not how dreams work. Like, dreams start when it's not easy, when it is the hard moments. And so I think it's so important to get started now. It's never a convenient time to go to a conference. It's never a convenient time to start working on your book, but you have today. This was the test I always love to do. The decision I'm making today, would Brian in 1 year from now, so I can literally name him. So I'm like, would 2025 Brian be grateful that 2024 Brian said yes to that? Actually heard a quote yesterday. It said, your future self is counting on your present self to keep the promises of your past self. And I'm like, oh, that's so good. So like, what promise did you make to yourself last year, yesterday? You probably said, I'm going to write a book. I want to write a book. Well, what are you doing today to write the book? Because your future is waiting on you to write that book.
Heading to this conference is the first step. Get the resources, get the encouragement, get the know-how that you need.
Yes.
Really, really excited about that. So thank you so much for spending this time with us. I can't wait for the event. Can't wait to hear of the other stories and books that are going to come out of this, and how it's going to have a bigger impact, and excited to have a small part in it. What would you leave our folks with today? There's one thing they need to remember. What is that?
You know what I would actually do? I'm going to give you a really clear action step. Number one, go to www.hopestoryconference.com. Check it out. See if it's a fit for you. Number two, I want you to text 3 friends. Text 3 friends and say, I'm thinking about writing a book. What do you think? I'm thinking about writing a book. What do you think? Because I think we all need encouragement. And when we don't have courage, what do? We get it from somebody else. And we take their courage and stick it in us. And so message 3 friends, say, I'm thinking about writing a book. What do you think? Because you know what they're going to say? They're going to say, do it. This is your time. So come to the Hope Story Conference. We're going to inspire you. We're going to educate you. We're going to encourage you to move forward, to get your message out, because the world needs your hope-filled words more now than ever before.
Thank you so much. Thanks for being here today. And if you're listening, the link for that is hopestoryconference.com. You want to check it out, get your ticket if it's a fit. And I hope to see you in Sarasota, Florida before too long. Your message matters, and it's time to take a step today to get it out there. We'll see you in the next episode.